Good morning, viewers. My name is Joshua Demi. You are welcome to Daily Trust Live Television. This morning we'll be discussing on the giant strike made so far by the APC-led government. And with me this morning is an APC member, a very strong member for that matter, Mr. Ayobami Oyalowo. You are welcome, sir.
Thank you for having me.
Okay, sir. We will be discussing about the present democratic dispensation and how far we've gone in our democratic. Should I go? I should start all over. Okay. So it's in the last 2 years, the APC-led government took over the government from an incumbent government, and it was a giant stride. And can you lead us into the event that led to that feat?
Well, it was a giant strike, like you said. And maybe I need to put it on record that campaign was led by Nigerians for Nigerians. I particularly was a member, and I served as a deputy director of media behind Garba Shehu. And it was a tough time for us as people, a tough time for Nigerians because, shortly before we got to the period of the elections, it got so bad that for some of us who were either living in Abuja or were frequent in Abuja can attest to the serious insecurity we were facing. In fact, as a Christian then, I stopped going to church on Sunday because I was scared. You never knew what church next was going to go in smokes on Sunday. It's unfortunate that we seem to have a very short memory. You were almost sure that one or two churches was going to be bombed every Sunday before that election. As if that was not bad enough. We had a situation then that we had almost zero power. It got so bad that hotels, because I was in the hotel then, we were rationing generators because they couldn't even get the fuel. It was that bad. It was, we were under such kind of situation when this government took over. And most Nigerians who don't have selective memory will remember clearly that prior to that election, we have never had it so good in terms of crude oil earnings. Nigeria in the last 40, 50 years have always been more like a monolithic economy where basically our earnings and our economy is tied strictly to crude earnings. And if you remember, from 2012 to 2015 or 14 thereabout, we had the longest oil boom the world has ever recorded. Almost 4 years, we were selling at over $100 per barrel. Yet, the government of the day then was borrowing to pay salaries. It was that bad. Nobody understands why. So, that was the situation we found ourselves. That was what led some of us who never were in politics before decided to say, look, enough is enough. The longer we keep allowing these guys, the more we will suffer. So some of us who found ourselves in politics, or we decided to be a part of the movement that brought in President Muhammadu Buhari, realized that either we do what we needed to do then, or our unborn generation will question what we were doing that led to the kind of situation they would have met had we not been able to change the tide of the nation before the government, before the election that eventually threw General Muhammadu Buhari, who is now President Muhammadu Buhari, as the president with Professor Yemi Osinbajo as his vice president. That was the real scenario that we found ourselves before the March 28th general election. It was supposed to be February 14 because of whatever they moved it, but here we are.
Okay, having laid this background, you actually mentioned some of the problems that resulted in the incumbents being pushed out of the office, and Nigerians are very frustrated right now. The hope they have in APC 2 years after, and it seems they've not been able to achieve any much. Can you tell us the success story?
Nigerians should understand clearly that it is easier to destroy than to build. Can I ask you a honest question, and I want a sincere answer? We're in this place now, right? Can you tell me how long it took to build this house? The minimum, you will say maybe 3 or 6 months, right? If I bring in a bulldozer here, how long will it take to destroy this place? In 30 minutes, you will no longer have this place. Am I right? You see, we need to understand that the presidency of this current administration did not just come in at a time when we were at a zero level. We were at a bar level. If you know mathematics, when you say bar, then we're at minus. Things were so bad, such that we as a country, we need to look back and think. Kids who were strictly like us in terms of the kind of economy they run, a monolithic economy like ours. Look at a country like Venezuela, for instance. For the past 60 days or thereabout, they've been on the street. They've been demonstrating. They've been angry. They've been fighting because it is so bad in Venezuela they can't even get water. And then you look back and say, had we had the kind of government where $20 billion was being declared stolen, where the NNPC had an opaque system that you cannot say this is how much they were owing, this is how much they had, nobody knows what is in their books. I don't know. See, it's easy for us to get angry and pretend like, oh, the promises, they didn't deliver. Yes, there could have been challenges, and I am not oblivious of the fact that we have challenges. But I am saying you need to look at where we were coming from as a country that brought us to where we are. Let me give you a small scenario. President Obasanjo, when he took over in 1999, oil price was about $35 per barrel. For the 8 years that he was in, it grew, and then it stood, and if you look at this 8 years, you give us an average of about $60 per barrel. Am I making sense? Now, when President Obasanjo was going to leave in after his 8 years, he had paid off our Paris Club debt. He left 45 billion in our foreign reserves and 22 billion in our excess crude account. That was what President Umar Yar'Adua inherited. Under Yar'Adua, oil prices grew to about $80 per barrel. Then Yar'Adua died and Jonathan took over. Are you following me? Yeah. As Jonathan took over, oil prices shot up to over $100. If you cast back your mind, it went as high as $150 per barrel around 2013. Am I making sense? But when President Jonathan will leave the office, what did he leave behind? He left us in debt. They were borrowing to pay salaries. He left 27 billion in foreign reserves. He left 2 billion in excess crude account. He sold oil thrice what the other people sold, but he left nothing behind. It's like a man who earns 100,000 naira. He has a family of 6 children, and he wasted all his patrimony. And suddenly the company ran into muddy waters, and they slashed his salary to $30,000 naira. Is he not going to have a problem? That was the situation Nigeria met itself. Because when Buhari took over, not only were we in debt, we had no savings, we had no excess crude account, oil prices were as low as $27 to $30 per barrel. So when Nigerians begin to make this noise, it's like they deliberately decide to forget where we are coming from, just so that we can have enough reason to get angry. But we need to understand that there must be a background to every situation that takes a man to where he is.
Thank you for that insight. If you are just joining us, this is Daily Trust Television, and with me here is a very strong member of All People Progressive Congress, Ayobami Oyalowo. We will be talking about the key promises that your party made before they took over government. One of them was fighting corruption. Another one is revamping the economy. Then security. In these 3 key cardinal areas, how far do you think APC has gone?
Thank you for this question. the three cardinal points that General Buhari then predicated his presidency upon. Other promises could be under it, but the key promises were, I'm going to fight corruption, I'm going to ensure that insurgency is taken away from Nigeria, and I'm going to revamp the economy. And I'm going to start with security. There's nothing you can build in an insecure environment. There's no way we can argue about that. Like I said, it got to a point that going to church on Sunday, if you were in the north or in Abuja, in fact, became almost a no-no. Till today, we still have the relics of those periods in my church. Going to church on Sunday, I still have to pass through that metal detector. Anytime I pass, I just smile. I mean, that was where we were in terms of security. Nobody knew where else the bombs would go off. They were going off like firecrackers on a daily basis, on a weekly basis. The mosque were not left out. Everywhere became a place where you can buy death at any point in time. Remember the Yanya bombing? Remember the one that happened at Emma Plaza? I mean, you could start counting just even in Abuja itself. Forget about the UN building. That one was there too. So, in terms of security, today, we must remember clearly that by the time this government took over, Boko Haram were holding a landmass the size of Belgium in Nigeria. Are you following me? Yeah. They had about 17 local governments in Borno State, 3 local governments in Adamawa, 3 local governments in Yola. It was that bad. A landmass the size of Belgium. As I speak with you today, Boko Haram is not holding an inch of Nigerian land. That is success. Of course, you're going to have pocket of challenges. Somebody will tell me herdsmen. Of course, you're going to have herdsmen. Of course, you're going to have problems. You will never have a situation in this world where there will be no security challenges. What you will now ask yourself is, what are we doing about it? Are we handling it better than before? Yes, we are. Our military is being deployed. I mean, I was in Kafanchan on Sunday. The military facility that was built, that was commissioned to be built by February. It was commissioned, it was started by February. By March 15, it was completed. I have pictures to show here. That means proactiveness. Because Southern Kaduna was boiling at the time, they had to move, they had to build a military base there. So as to, because I didn't know that Kafanchan was that far from Kaduna. It was almost 3-4 hours drive. So they needed to have a military base there to make it easier. For me, that is proactiveness. You also remember the Boko Haram challenges. Before, the military guys were in Abuja here getting fat. All of them were looking like pregnant women. But what did General Buhari do when he became the president? He moved the command center to the theater of war, so as to ensure that the ones who will make decisions are right where the action is going on. So for security, you cannot fault this government. Yes, we always have challenges, no doubt about it. We're still having some challenges, but we are being proactive. That is one. Secondly, in terms of corruption, we must understand that government has 3 arms. The executive job is to say, look, this is corruption, we are catching this person. It is now the job of the judiciary to conclude the job. If the judiciary keeps freeing everybody because maybe forever, for whatever reason, that is not the executive problem. The executive has said we will not condone it, we will take it to the court. It is now left for the legislature itself to find how to revamp our laws, because I must be honest with you, most of our laws are either too archaic or were built in a way that corruption can always find its way around it. So the legislature must sit down and say, look, do we really want to fight corruption or want to joke? If we want to fight corruption, we must make laws that will make it easier to convict people who have been accused and with evidence. Because no matter how good a lawyer is, by the time some technicalities are introduced, you find out that people are able to work for. When somebody has been accused of stealing $1 billion, for instance, the guy can afford to use 200 million out of it to hire 70 sons and get them to scatter everything. So that is the challenges we are finding. But to be sincere with you, one thing you must give this government now is that it is now much more scary to steal than it was before. And I'll give you an example. When the Minister of Petroleum, Mrs. Diziani, was accused, I remember what the president of that time said. He said the National Assembly is disturbing the woman. They should let her do her job. They should stop inviting her. But today, under this government, when the SGF was accused, the president did not shield them. He first called for an internal investigation. And when the internal investigation showed that there is an issue truly, he was suspended from office. The SGF is one of the highest offices you can find in government, but the SGF was suspended. It tells you that we will not condone corruption. I would never tell you, look at you here and lie that there will be no corruption under this government. No. But what I will tell you is that it will not be condoned if it is caught. That is second. Now, in terms of the economy, we say we'll revamp the economy. How are we going to revamp the economy? We have been a monolithic economy for over 50 years of our nationhood. So what are we doing? Currently, as I speak with you, the Anchor Borrower program is throwing up a lot of good news in the agricultural sector. The mining sector is going on. Look at the last figure that was released by the NBS. For the first time, manufacturing sector grew by over 36%. That for me is success. So it will not come overnight because we don't have the basis. The platform was not that we are just building it. But I can tell you clearly that gradually we will get to a point. Now, before, agriculture was something nobody wanted to do. But today, youth. I was in Jigawa recently. I was in Jigawa a few years back. Now I was in Jigawa a few months back again, and I'll tell you the difference. The first time I was in Jigawa, about 5-6 years ago, a lot of Okada were on the road. They call them Achaba in the north. The Hausa young men were all doing Okada because for them, I went a few months ago. It has changed. What has changed? Many of the young people who were riding bikes as businesses have gone back to the farm. They are into rice, onions, and so many other things. What am I saying? The agricultural plan being put in place by the federal government in conjunction with the CBN is building a crop of young farmers who no longer see farming as a burden but as a profession that can feed them. And the results are there. The governor of Kaduna State said something recently, and I'm going to repeat what he said. He said last year, for the first time in the history of the North, when they were going to call for people that would go to Hajj, the largest number of people who registered to go to Hajj were rural farmers. This year, the same thing. About 70% of people who were going to Hajj were farmers from the rural area. What am I saying? These guys are making enough money. So we must begin to understand that agriculture is doing well. And then looking at the other side, the other aspect, aside agriculture, the presidency is working on building technological hub, because whether you like it or not, the fourth industrial revolution is here, and it's going to be basically a revolution that is technologically driven. So we cannot be left behind. So, and the government is working on that, building hub, trying to make sure young people. I remember the tech thing that was done in the villa. It's being worked on. So gradually, the economy is being diversified, taking away from total dependence on oil. And if all things goes as planned, in the next few years, our major earnings will no longer be from oil. We will be able to get money from other aspects of the economy, such that if oil prices fluctuate as it will always do, it will no longer have the kind of adverse effect on our economy like it had recently and like it always used to.
One shady deals or the other are being shielded by the government. An example is the former governor of Rivers State, Rotimi Amaechi, then former state governor of Ekiti, Fayemi. They believe the government has not given the anti-graft agency enough leeway, enough freedom to do their job. And just as you mentioned, the SGF was investigated internally when we have an arm of the government that has a job to investigate any financial misoperation. Why are you going to respond to this allegation?
You see, it's easy to just get emotional. And when you're emotional, you lose your rationality. And I'm going to answer this question very clearly. Governor Rotimi Amaechi, now Minister of Transport, has challenged the state government, if they have any evidence against him, to forward it to the anti-graft agencies. Hasn't he done that severally and openly? If they will not, if they want to just keep making this noise on the pages of newspaper, good luck to them. I have nothing to say to such people. If they have issues against Amaechi, they should compile whatever they have. The whistleblower policy is there. Let them go ahead and report Amaechi to the anti-graft agency and see if they will move or not. That is by the side. Now, talking about the SGF, you know what they call administrative inquiry, don't you? You don't just do things because people are screaming. You have to follow what you call the due process. The man is an SGF. He's a sitting member of a senior sitting member of the government. And what did they do? Do you understand the meaning of suspending a man from his office? It's a huge step, which means by the time the result of the inquiry, internal inquiry is out, if the man is found wanting, he will be handed over to the security agencies. But if he wasn't suspended, it would be easy for him to use his office to manipulate the situation. So people should be very reasonable with this argument. I can give you names of APC people who have been. Are you aware that even some of them are rushing to just to escape being dealt with? But the current issue of the Capital Oil man, Ifeanyi Ubah, is he not an APC member? Please now answer me. Is he not an APC member? Is our Senate president not in court? Is he a PDP member? See, all these silly things people say, I don't understand where they are thinking from, but I'm not sure they are thinking from their head. Because if they are thinking from their head, it is very clear. The member of the Presidential Committee on Arms, that colonel, I forgot his name now, is he not a member of this, an appointee of this present government that has been fired and is now in court? The National Treasury than the opposition.
Thank you.
People should stop being all this nonsense. Lopsidedness is very funny. If you have never been in government, you will never have access to government money. It is those who have been in government who should be investigated. If anybody have anything otherwise, let them go and report to the anti-graft agency. They have it there. The agencies are open. They can take their cases there. They can take their reports there. The whistleblower policy is there. So people should be rational rather than being emotional when it's time to make this kind of situation, this kind of talks. Because for me, Baba Chilawa was one of the biggest appointees of government. He's under suspension currently. If the result is out, it's because the president is not in country. But then the report is made open to the president. If need be for him to be handed over to security agencies to be prosecuted, of course it will be done. So what else do you want? Kill people just because you want them to say it's not lopsided?
Thank you for your response. I have another question from one Agbejon Efe Joel. He said if Buhari knew it will take time to build, why did he make the promises? All we hear is... They
already said it clearly to you that he never knew the stealing was that much. That is why they didn't give us the report of the handover report until a day to hand over officially. So I don't know what they are saying. Buhari was an outsider. He doesn't have access to the records of government. Nobody had the record. We don't even know the number of accounts this government was, the Nigerian government had until the TSA was put in place. Let me give you an example that is clear. The Kaduna State example. When they decided to implement TSA, they discovered that they had 228 accounts in different banks. Some of those monies have been there. They were almost lost. These are records. You can go investigate if I'm just throwing these figures out. They had over 228 accounts. So how will Buhari know the crime that have been committed by the PDP-led government when he was not a member of the government? Of course, you will make promises based on the indices available. The indices available was that we were selling oil at $100 per barrel. We had so and so amount in foreign reserve. But Buhari is not in government, wasn't in government then. He would not have known that the kind of criminal stealing that went on under the last government, he couldn't have imagined it. I couldn't have imagined it. Until you get in, you will never know how the house looks like. From the outside, do you know if this house is a graveyard? Do you know if there are bones in this house? Until you come inside, you will never know what this room looks like.
Okay, if you are just joining us, this is Daily Trust Television. We are live with an APC member, Mr. Ayobami Oyalowo. I'm sorry. I'm Joshua there. We are still taking questions from our viewers. One, Paul Martins, said, why are you praising Obasanjo when PMB is busy blaming the PDP?
I didn't blame anybody. I didn't praise anybody. I only told you figures that were left by each person. You see, Nigerians, I don't know how people reason. There's no way I praise anybody here. I only said Obasanjo sold oil at this amount. He left this amount behind in the coffers of government, and this was what happened. I never praised anybody. I only mentioned figures as are in the records.
Okay. I have another question from one Yaya Yusuf. He is asking of the performance of the ministers. The president took months before he appointed his ministers, and True. As it is, most of them are not performing up to.
Let me mention the one that is not performing, because the one that affects me, because I am an economist in my own line. The Minister of Finance is doing an excellent job for me. The Minister of Mines and Power is doing an excellent job. The Minister of Budget and Planning, Udoma, is doing a good job. For me, I don't know. Yes, everybody will not perform very well, but I'm sure by the time the midterm report is out, if there is need for people to be removed, the president will take that decision. I cannot take decision for the presidency. I cannot say anything. Of course, I have some ministers I don't like myself. I feel they are not doing too well. But in generality, the ones that affect our immediate life, which is economy, agriculture, and other things, are doing excellent job. Already, the Minister of Agriculture just told us that in the next 1 or 2 years, we'll begin to export yam internationally. And if you understand that statement, let me quickly give you a few figures. Nigeria is responsible for 30% international production of yam, but we are only responsible for 5% world export of yam. That means you produce over 30% of the entire world yam production, but we are only responsible for 5%, which means we've not been doing something right. So the minister is saying we're going to start exporting commercially, then we should give him that chance to prove that. So we need to understand that everybody will not perform as well as everybody for so many other reasons, and then you will have to find reasons. Do your midterm report to announce that this minister has not performed. I don't want to mention names. I can tell you some people that I think have not performed well too, but I've just told you in terms of the economy, I can tell you the Minister of Finance has done extremely well. She has been able to reduce the number of ghost workers, if not eliminated totally. At least a lot of them have been taken off the payroll. So for me, she's done very well. In terms of the macro and the microeconomics, we can say we have done extremely well. Our Eurobond was oversubscribed. Our dollar rate is, dollar to naira rate is improving, and our foreign reserves is getting better. If Jonathan, who met 65 billion and sold oil at over $100, could not leave anything behind, this government is selling at less than $50, and our foreign reserve, as I speak to you, is about 31 billion. So how will I say she has not performed when the one they say is from Harvard did everything to reduce and finish our economy, destroyed whatever savings was left? The one that they say is not from Harvard is building the economy, is building our foreign reserves. Our naira to dollar rate is improving because we now have enough in our external reserve to fight the vagaries of the whatever they call market forces. So for me, I will point some of the ministers that affect my own direct area of jurisdiction that they have done extremely well. So
okay, Ishaku Musa is asking, is there anything to talk about, sir, when price of food in the market is 3 times higher compared
what
to
have he done to improve price of food? People can just sit down and be complaining online. I just told you of the young men in Jigawa who used to ride on bike. They are all on the farm. Go to the farm and then help us to reduce the price of food. People should stop making all these complaints, because a friend of mine just sent this thing to let me look for if I can read it out here. She just sent something and I didn't even know. I didn't think about it that way. She said, sorry, it's opening. She said, lake rice is still 12,000. So nice. Who complain help? You know the online language. You wake up every day to blame government. When I think government will give you money, most of my friends are into farming now. Cashew, plantain, palm, kernel, melon. In fact, one planted just ugu on hectares of land. Who complain don't help. Believe me, there will be abundance next year. She's not in government. She's just a friend of mine on Facebook. And when all the refineries of Dangote start working, Naira will appreciate greatly. Complain till now and forever. If you don't take a step, nothing will shele. I scored this government 70% for setting our brain to agriculture. If you like, come and beat me. I do should. No, that's the end of it. So the truth is, people just sit down and complain. What have they done? I just gave you an example of young people in Jigawa who have realized that riding Okada is not as paying for them as going back to their farm. This one sit down on the online and keep complaining 24 hours. They don't do anything. They just want to complain. Enjoy the complaint. If complaint will feed you, good for you. If you think you need to do action, take action. The shoes I'm wearing today, I deliberately dressed this way. They buy Nigeria to make Nigeria great. It's clearly working. Young men who hitherto will sit down and be looking for jobs are making shoes. They are making caps. They are making clothes. They are doing things. Others are sitting down online to complain. Everybody can do whatever pleases them. If complaining is going to make your life better, please continue to wait. But if you think this is an opportunity to look inward, to change the trajectory of your life, rather than sit down and complain, I can contribute my own quota. In the worst of situation is when you can make the best of it. Because I remember clearly, Robert Scholar in his book, he said, when tough time comes, tough people are better. Say tough time never lasts, tough people, but tough people do. Say when times are tougher, that's when the tough people must stand and be counted. So people can sit down and be complaining, but smarter guys, smarter people, not just guys, ladies, are looking into the situation and tapping into it to ensure that they can better their own life. And for me, that is a positive, not just sitting down and looking for reason to be angry.
You actually made mention of buying Nigeria to grow Nigeria, and in fact is in line with the change. Change begins with you.
Yeah, it's and now, the minister.
I want to take you to the president's medical trips abroad. We talked about Nigeria, change starting with us. People are kind of wondering why our president should keep on going abroad for medical.
I think he's in line to answer that question for himself. It's not my own problem. I'm not sick. I can go to hospital here. But let's take the jokes away. Truth is, I asked the same question personally, and I was told something that before he became president, he already had his doctor in London. That is because he was president. We didn't know this. He's always done his checkup abroad and so on. But that is beside the answer. If you are sincere with yourself, I'm fortunate that I'm married to a medical doctor, so I can tell you clearly that our health system is totally messed up. It is not a word of mouth that will change it. It will be a lot of hard work. And that is why, if you realize, this government has realized that primary health centers, primary health care system is one of the most lacking in our system. That is why everybody goes to the teaching hospital, the general hospital. There are things that could be handled at the primary health care level. So right now, efforts are being concentrated on developing that area. And the state should partner the government, because the states are closer to the people. And thank God for the Kaduna State experience I just had, because I was in Kaduna. That's why I keep using them as example. I was in Kaduna for the weekend, and I realized that they have about 40 primary care health centers that have just been developed. I have pictures. If you want to see them, I can show you. And all of them are solar powered, so they have 24 hours light. So it will be gradual, and totally I align with the fact that everybody should seek health care in Nigeria, because the truth is, you and I cannot afford to enter plane and go to London if we are ill. So we need to get the basic, but of course it will take time. So if we develop the primary care center, we can now begin to move towards the tertiary healthcare system, which is the teaching hospitals and other things, the specialist hospitals. It will come, but it will have to take time.
Okay, if you are just joining us, this is Daily Trust Television Live. We are discussing the midterm report, the midterm achievement of the present administration. And with me today is an APC member, Mr. Ayobami Oyalowo. And finally, sir, the government made so many promises, to most especially to the youth and co. One of the promises, as mentioned by one of our viewers, is the fact that the government is going to give stipends to youth corps members that just finished their service. And in fact, it was one of the high points of the election campaign then. And until now, nothing has happened.
I was a member of the campaign council. We never promised any youth corps money. I don't know why people keep saying this. We have tried to debunk this. What we promised, and I'm going to state it clearly again for people who are rational and who really want to think. What we promised was that for those who are out of job from the age of 18 to 35, we will give them stipends. And that has already been done in about 9 states right now. Then what we also promised for people like youth corps members or who have finished service is that they will be paid a certain amount of money if they agree to come and learn some other skills. And if you realize that that is already in place, we didn't just say we'll enter every house and start dashing people money. It doesn't work that way. But skill acquisition centers are being set up as we speak. People who have agreed to take such skills will be given some stipend to maintain their lives while they learn and acquire new skills, which after they are done, we will now equip them with, if they need equipment to go and either, maybe they want to fabricate things or they want to produce something, they will be given machineries to do that. That is already being done. So it is not that we say we'll just look for youth corps, oh yeah, all of you come and take money. I mean, nobody does that. So the reality is that some people just decide to twist things that we said. I was a member of that council. I know clearly what we said. I was the deputy director of media for the campaign, so I know exactly the things we put out there. Some other things we didn't say. But people said we say. Like they said, we will change $1 to 1 naira. There was nowhere anybody said that. But people just want to be mischievous. But if Nigerians love to lie to themselves, I'm happy that the greater number of Nigerians don't enjoy it. It's just a few people who think that is how to play opposition. We promised some things, we're already doing it. Unfortunately, the level is not as high as we would have done because of the funds that is not available. For instance, the school feeding program, the homegrown school feeding program. About 9 states or thereabout have already been on the pilot scale, and the first state we started with is even a PDP state. So for me, we made promises. We couldn't fulfill many of them because of the situation that we met ourselves. But we are gradually, if you realize that this year now, the current budget, the money that was that we put in for social infrastructure is higher than that of last year. And remember, just yesterday, 100 billion has been set aside for social housing scheme. So anybody who, people who are poor, who are not very rich, can actually get those houses for 2.5 million, and they'll be paying 30,000 naira just per annum on the mortgage. So it's not just giving people money; it's about the total social welfare system. So for a poor person now, with 30,000 naira per month, you can actually own a house. It was released yesterday. This is it here. I'm very sure I have it somewhere here. An email that was sent out from the office of the vice president. The acting president. So this is it here. How low-income earners can own houses for 30,000 naira monthly. So the FG has started 100 billion naira family home fund, such that, and it's in conjunction with the AGB and other donor bodies. So they will subsidize it with 30,000 naira now. You will get a house and you will just pay 30,000 every month. So we should look at what we are doing. People should stop worrying about, we say we will give per person 5,000 naira. What do 5,000 naira do for a copper that was earning 20,000 before he stopped being a copper? Let them be more creative. Go into agriculture. We will give you loans to do farming. Don't wait for stipends. Look for how to create value. As I speak with you right now, I have a huge rice business between me and a friend of mine that we are running, and I don't even have a land. But I work with some people, and as I speak to you now, this current harvest of rice is going on. We have 2 other harvests. So every year we harvest rice 3 times. People should sit down and be complaining rather than look for opportunity to make money. When the time is right, we'll all come back and look at who is better off, the one who want to complain or the one who want to tap into the opportunities that is available.
Thank you so much, our viewers. Thank you for joining us today. But before we go, APC actually conducted a poll recently, and most of those who voted actually voted that the party has performed very poorly in the last 2 years. And I want your final word now, just a brief. This time next year, are you going, when you conduct the same poll, are you assuring Nigeria that the response is going to be positive?
Like I told you, to build is always slower and more painful. To destroy is always the easiest. We are building, the policies are already being put in place, the results are trickling in. And I can assure you, for instance, I said it clearly, and I'm going to say it again without fear, that prices of goods will begin to crash by the 3rd quarter of this year. Simply because, 1, harvest will come in. 2, dollar to naira rate will keep improving to the advantage of the naira, and goods that have been bought at the high dollars, by the time they are expended in shops and other places, when they are replaced at the new rate, you will automatically see that difference. So for me, I know the challenges are there, and I will not tell you that I'm oblivious to it. I can see it, I feel it, but I can tell you gradually that we'll move out. Price of PMS affect a lot of things in our life. About 52 modular refineries will come up. Dangote refinery will come up. By the time and the Minister of Petroleum, State Minister of State for Petroleum has already put his life on the line. So, which means by the time we no longer import PMS, it is the largest gulping item of our foreign exchange. Go and take it, PMS. So by the time we stop importing PMS, automatically you will see the effect on our lives. And I want to assure Nigerians that you never made a mistake changing the situation that you were pre-2015. If we had continue like that, Venezuela will have been our story today. But we thank God, things are tough, but at least we're not on the street eating in rubbles. Things will get better, and even though the challenges are here and not and there, the reality is that we are seeing light at the end of the tunnel. It will get better, and hopefully we'll all come back and have reasons to smile. But of course, I know a few people will perpetually remain complainant, but for the majority of us, there will be reason for us to laugh, and hopefully we will laugh. But those who want to complain, they can enjoy it.
Thank you so much for your time. Our viewers, thank you for staying with us. My name is Joshua Odeyemi. Please keep on commenting and stay in touch with us. Thank you.